Well, welcome to the Business Spotlight Series. My name is Tanner O'Brien. I'm a senior partner here at Action Coach in Central Texas. Today, I am joined by David Bober, who is the owner of Jobell Café and Bistro. Super excited to be jumping in, talking through some conversations, just entrepreneurship, business building, all the fun stuff that comes along with it, all the, emotions and frustrations that may also come along the journey as well. But David, thank you so much for taking the time. If we could, I'd love to, let's just start with a little bit of background about you and, just give us a 10,000-foot view, general overview of who you are and tell us a little bit about Jobell Cafe and Bistro.
I'd be glad to. And Tanner, thank you for having me. It's really a pleasure to, engage with you. And it's what I love best about this business and entrepreneurship in general, which is the human interaction. And even though we're distant and doing this via Zoom, these things are all important to me. And so I value that and I thank you. I'm from New York City originally, settled in Hill Country, Texas about 10 years ago with a dream that my wife and I had of opening a restaurant. And, I have a long history of living in New York, grew up in the Bronx and, a little older. I'm not going to give away my age. I'm going to be turning something in about 2 weeks. So, but I grew up in the 70s, late 60s, 70s in the South Bronx and experienced all the craziness that New York was known for during those years, lived on the Lower East Side. And, years after that, I managed to get into a loft building in Soho when that was a derelict neighborhood. And I was a contractor for 30 years. So I did interior renovations and that was hard work. Met my wife in New York in '04 on a job, actually, for some very wealthy clients. She was from Dallas. And my brother had been at UT for a number of years, curator of art history there. And so, we began imagining after having both our kids, Joshua in '06 and Isabella Bell in 2010. And that's the name of the restaurant, Josh and Bell, is Jobell. That's where that comes from. We began imagining our life elsewhere, aside from Lower Manhattan, right above Canal Street. And I knew a lot of people in the restaurant industry. I had friends who were chefs and bartenders and servers, and I was a contractor, so friends in the industry often would ask me to repair things in their kitchens, emergency repairs, and then they would ply me with free food and drinks, which was always fun. So a little downtown network of people. One thing that helped lead to this idea of opening a restaurant was not just my wife and I both having a passion for good food, our own ideas about food, frequenting downtown haunts, little small restaurants that, are not off the tourist beaten path, where we'd have amazing meals in little tiny hole in the wall spots. There was also the influence of my mom, who was an art historian, at NYU initially. She's from Maine originally, but, we grew up in the Bronx. She was an art historian, but one of her passions coming out of the Depression, being very poor and saving every scrap of everything. One of the things that she instilled in me was this respect for food, for preserving natural food processes, for respecting local businesses and trying to encourage local sourcing of ingredients. And, I remember trips to little South Bronx supermarkets where she would pick the oddest things and just make amazing meals. She was passionate about food, and she wrote about ancient culinary history and lectured on it. And so some of that must have taken hold somewhere because as this relationship with my wife and having the kids kind of drove us to thinking about getting out of New York, we had to reimagine what we were going to do, what kind of careers we'd pursue. And we always had this idea of opening a little restaurant and thought it would be magical and fun. And so we stumbled on Wimberley, didn't really know about it, stumbled on, we'd been looking around Texas for, 2010. My daughter was born, Isabella, and we began really seriously thinking about moving. And looking around, Austin took 2 years to finally stumble on Wimberley, which is a beautiful little town in hill country. I don't know if you're familiar. Very much a tourist destination. It's growing all the time. As Austin moves kind of south and west, the whole area is booming. And we found a place and moved here in 2013, almost 10 years ago to the day. We moved July 4th weekend. Pardon me. And we felt like this was really our Independence Day as well, that we were setting up on a new life in a new place. And it was exciting and scary and all of those things that entrepreneurship brings. Moved in July. By September, I found a little derelict building about 5 minutes from my house, thank God, which had a beautiful wooded property. And I decided to buy it and spent a year renovating it and opened it in September 2014 as Jobell Café and Bistro. So that's, I could go on forever. There's a lot of fun little anecdotes about that whole process. But we got in and we got it open, which was an amazing feat. So yeah, and we became restaurateurs.
That is absolutely fantastic. What a journey. And I'm excited to, peel back some of that and ask, some questions around it. But, before we do, on this conversation, the Spotlight series, we talked to a lot of different types of business owners, different sizes, different, lots of different structures, right? So I like to just kind of set the stage for the audience here on kind of what is, generally speaking, what does current ownership structure look like? Are you a sole founder? Do you have a business partner? Did you have to take on outside investors at any point? Kind of what does that look like for you today, just generally speaking?
Yeah, I'm a one-person LLC. For small business owners, that's a very convenient sort of structure. You can still file your business returns without getting, accounting. You can still file your business returns and your personal returns together on a 1040, but yet you're protected by the LLC structure. So for small business owners just starting out, I would recommend that. And I'm not an expert by any means. So, but it worked for us. One location, obviously, owner, managed and operated. In the 9 years in September, 9 years will have been open. I've never had a dedicated GM. I'm the manager, and my wife does. Well, we started out. We were in there the first few years, the way a restaurant demands this of you. We were in there 24/7. We had a little room up in this tiny office of this building that I renovated, where the kids had a bed and a TV. They were 6 and 3 when we opened, and we were there all the time. And you just give your life over to starting this dream. And this is also something I think a lot of entrepreneurs who've gone through this will nod their heads in agreement. You have to give yourself wholly to whatever dream you have and want to pursue. There's no half measures in doing this. And there's so many things demanded of you, and there's so many hats to wear. And especially if you were passionate about what you're doing, there's a degree, and I'll get to this later, which is how to let go of this. But in the beginning, there's a micromanaging, because you want everything to be the way your vision dictates. And later on, you have to learn the opposite, which is letting go and let good people run the place and do what they need to do, because micromanaging doesn't work in the long term. I found that out. So my wife and I got this open in 2014, and we're there first, 4 years, like 24/7. Every night I was there greeting guests. My wife was working. She helped design the first menus. I had a Brazilian friend I have to give a shout out, Jose Andrade. We call him Apollo because he thinks he's a god. But anyway, he's a chef in New York I knew for 20, 30 years, and a marvelous human being, and was a classical dancer in Brazil in the 70s, just an amazing person. And he came and lived with us for 6 months in my house behind me, and I was dying to kick him out. But anyway, he and my wife worked tirelessly creating the menu. They had cookbooks all over the place, strewn everywhere. downloads from the internet. They turned my house into a test kitchen, and I ate so well that summer. It was like amazing. So they designed our first little limited menu. We didn't open for lunch or brunch. We just were doing dinner service in the beginning. You have to sort of limit your goals in the very beginning because there's so many unexpected things. It's easy to get top heavy and topple over. You're trying to carry too much. So we started with the limited goals of just doing small menu dinner service, but handcrafted food, local sourcing wherever possible, really a respect for ingredients and for the process. And just what I'd like to say, I may be, straying because I tend to go down rabbit holes when I talk about anything. And I haven't even had a glass of wine yet. But, there's something about a lot of businesses start, and I would say this for other entrepreneurs as well. A lot of businesses start with people doing a lot of research, right? About demographics, what will sell, a marketing plan. Mm-hmm. And I have always been very much, so this is also instilled by my mom, anti-corporate, anti-structure. I think food is a human construct, and to do it well, at least for us, I can't speak to anybody else, you have to do it with a certain honesty about what is of value to you. And I'd say this to other entrepreneurs, you can study all you want and do your marketing, but you have to have a belief in what you do above everything else. So we never really did, it's Texas, Hill Country, Texas, like, what's going to sell here? Oh, barbecue, we Tex-Mex, we didn't do that. We did it based on our passions about what good food is. Mm. So, you do that with a certain belief and a certain honesty. And the goal is that people will feel that and recognize that and gravitate towards that. So that's, sort of something that other entrepreneurs, I would just say, if there's any recommendation to be had from this, is if you have a dream, believe in what you are envisioning. It's not saying be blind to what's going on around you, but have belief in what your vision is, and so there's that. So we got open first 4 or 5 years, and my wife and I were, it's hard running a business with your wife and wearing all those hats, and it's hard shutting it off. You come home and you're talking about the restaurant, and I used to have a safe sign. I forget what it was. It was like, something where I would say, please, no more restaurant talk. I have to shut it down. And then when you have a brawl at home, you bring it into the restaurant, and you're scowling at each other, and all the other employees are looking at you like, what is going on? So she was the smart one who decided to get a part-time job and get out of the day-to-day operations of the restaurant, but she still helps me with all the important decisions and doing scheduling and payroll and those things. Mm. And I'm the dummy who stuck with it. So, but,
oh, man.
I probably wandered way off your original question, but go ahead.
No, you're covering so much. It's absolutely fantastic. I just can't cut you off on these pieces because there's gold in this conversation. And actually, if there's anywhere that I'd love to just kind of dive into a little bit is that concept of working with spouse, or just you can even just broaden it a little bit to working with family. Yeah. I've got a little bit of experience with that. My dad is in the business with me. My mom is in the business with me. We've got a business partner and such as well. My dad comes from, family business, all that kind of stuff, working with his dad in a moving company. And, we see the frustrations that can bubble up, sometimes with not being able to turn off the conversation from time to time. When it's setting those boundaries. When Thanksgiving becomes a board meeting because everybody's talking about it. So I'm just curious, like, if you could talk a little bit more about kind of what your experience was been and getting to that point where there was a little bit of a transition. How did you all kind of manage that, cope with it, before your wife went out and decided to, exit the day to day? And,
well, there's a confusion, especially, my wife was I was more like, and to this day, I'm very much the schmoozer, right? I talk to all the guests. I know, I've met so many people there. I run into them in the local supermarket. It's become like a little social network over the years of all the people who've come in the doors and had a wonderful meal and stopped me. And I'm like trying to remember who they are. And I'm like, oh my God. But, made friendships and everything. But, so more front of house. I renovated the place. It was a derelict building. So it took me a year, 7 days a week, using all my skills virtually by myself, and gutted the place, all new kitchen, new equipment, new subfloor. I did all the plumbing, the electrical. I did it was just nonstop work. I think I took 1 day off in a year. And so, and I know equipment, I know machinery. I designed the kitchen, every screw, everything. So I'm very much the mechanical guy. I repair everything when it breaks, which is a nightmare. And I have some recommendations for restaurateurs about that, which just remind me about that. I'm the yard guy. It's a 2-acre property with a ton of woods, and I'm always doing all the yard work. I'm cleaning. I do the deep cleans of the equipment. I get a couple of guys to help me once every 2 weeks. We break everything down in the kitchen. I'm a clean freak. So it's, people have commented it's the most spotless kitchen you'll ever see. So we're, it's hands-on. So my wife was very much food oriented. She was helping with menus. She's amazing with food. She's from Dallas originally. She's a true Texan. She was pursuing an acting career in New York, and I kind of screwed that up for her. Dragged her back to Texas. She is amazing with food. Her background is Cuban and Chinese, and she has immense food chops from both of those heritages. And I have my own ideas about good food. So, but she was very much back of house in the beginning, actually on the line cooking. So yeah, but she is a creative soul and has that just artistic drive of creativity, but she's not as organized. Things tend to get in disarray. So we'd always be fighting about that. Could you please clean up after yourself? You're spreading out over the whole kitchen, that kind of thing. So so it was really funny. There were a lot of funny times. And then, it's owner operated, right? So you have 2 owners in there simultaneously, and staff is looking for direction. And sometimes they get conflicting input from us, at the time. She would be telling them one thing, I'd be saying another. And they're kind of scratching their heads like, well, who do we listen to? So that creates some degree of confusion. And we would, that would be a subject to some of our biggest fights is what were you saying to them? It's not what I asked you to do. It's, so that we both have great ideas, and I respect her ideas and she respects mine, but these things are bound to happen. And then, bringing it home, just a funny anecdote. I remember one time in particular, just, all the time, it's like, you can't let it go. So I had got home one night, after, cleaning up and getting the restaurant all shut down for the night. It's like midnight. I'm greasy. I've been in the back cleaning and mopping and closing, as we say. So I get home and I'm in the shower, and she comes with the laptop to the shower curtains and opens the curtain and is showing me something about the business on the laptop. And I'm like, can I please take a shower in peace? So anyway, I'm just, funny anecdotes. It can go off the rails, but I could never have done it without her. Would have never happened. And I can't, to this day, I can't run it without her input and help. So it's essential to have somebody you can trust and rely on, and I love my employees, but there's nobody like you work with your family. There's nobody like family in that regard. And that's a precious thing. So if you have somebody in your corner that, it's like, you can put your trust in and you're starting a business, that's a valuable asset. Yeah, but there's boundaries, has to be boundaries. Yeah.
Yes.
Sometimes you got to write them out. There should be maybe a written list. So yeah.
Oh, 100%. Absolutely. Having those rules of the game, kind of some boundaries, things like that. Really, really important. Really in anything that you do, but especially if there's, additional relationships outside of just the business relationship.
Absolutely.
But I'd love to just talk a little bit about team in general. So you'd been open for almost 9 years now. Growing the team, you had mentioned, micromanaging some things at the beginning, starting to get to the point of being able to let go. That kind of leads me to, I always like to ask, a couple questions around leadership, and, how would you describe your leadership style in business, and has it changed over the years as you've learned and grown?
Yeah, it has very much. And thank you. That's a critical component. Passion leads passion and especially having built the place and designed the menu, family, we started it from our guts. We just gave birth to this thing. And it's, like with kids, I mean, I guess, I don't know, you helicopter, right? So you're managing every little thing and your eyes are everywhere. And employees, in the beginning, it might be necessary because you're setting a certain standard. You're setting your expectations and they get to know, and we've been through a ton of employees. Don't get me started on that one. I have a great team and I've had some wonderful people in the past, but we've also had some absolute unmitigated disasters. And this industry attracts a mix of creative souls, very restless souls, and some very troubled souls. And, you end up with the whole schmear. So the good old New York Yiddish term. But yeah, if you have good people and you demonstrate that you are, and this is part of leadership, you are willing to get in the trenches with them. You're not just pointing and directing, that you're willing to get down under the low boys and sweep out trash and mop the floor and do whatever that I still do. It garners a certain amount, I guess, of respect, that you're not looking down on anybody and saying, well, just do this. So, you're working alongside of them, but at some point they begin to see, if something's not done to your liking, and you just end up like throwing up your hands and like, forget it, I'll do it. They begin to assume over time that it'll just get done and they don't have to do it. So sometimes you have to leave a mess. You have to leave something in disarray and tell them, please fix this. And that was hard for me to learn because I never liked, personal confrontation. I don't like giving orders. I was, as a contractor, I was for most of those 30 years working alone. I wasn't used to having employees. And my instinct was always just do it yourself, get it done. But that beyond a certain point, that's the wrong approach. So I would say leadership is instilling a certain value set and hoping that your employees take agency, which is a word I love, where they begin to internalize your set of values and your eyes, and they can see things the way you do and realize what has to get done. So in terms of management style, I'm very much from the school of like, we're all adults here. We have fun, we party, but we work hard, and you guys look around and see what has to get done. And don't wait for me to tell you, get it done, So there's a certain respect for people being adults, which is, it's not nursery school. Look around and do what is expected. And for the most part, I find that really works because you're giving them, I think, the highest form of respect as workers, and also paying them well, which is important. They see that they're valued and their input is valued and that their opinions are valued. And, we have sporadic meetings, every place has their front of house, back of house meetings. I'm very bad about it. I don't do it as much as I should because I hate them. Because basically it's me just talking and everybody sits there listening. We have a little agenda and I ask at the end, because anybody want to say anything? They're like, no, we want to go home. So, so, it's the meeting thing. But personally, when you talk about issues with your employees, be a good listener because they have valuable things to offer. They see things from different angles and perspectives and, listen to what they have to offer because that's how you grow a business. And it's also how you grow a team feeling where people feel that they are participating, So that's all I really have to offer on that. And I hope that's useful to people. But, it's been a learning process for me personally,
I love that. Absolutely love it. And I think it exemplifies, something that we talk a lot about is the kind of the process of building a business is the owner's responsibility in a lot of cases is to build the team. And when you have the right team and you've built it well, and there's that respect and they know what they're supposed to do, they'll build the business. And then the business will take care of the customers and all that kind of stuff. So it is really cool to hear that in kind of your journey of lessons learned along the way, that sort of thing. Definitely incredibly valuable, especially if there's those out there that have been in kind of business before but haven't had much of a team and are in that phase of learning how to build. There's a lot of lessons to be learned from those who've gone through it before to ideally shortchange it and reduce a little bit of heartburn along the way.
Absolutely. And I'm still learning. 9 years in, I'm still learning. it's an ongoing process. There's not an end to it. So, yeah. So go ahead. Let's go
Well,
more. I like this. It's a lot of fun.
Well, I know we've certainly covered a lot of ground today, and I want to be respectful of time. We've already been chatting for quite a while here, so I want to jump into kind of our rapid fire questions before we officially wrap up. So purpose of this is more top ahead answers here. I know we probably could go fairly deep on a handful of these, but 4 quick questions, just kind of top ahead answers for each. We'll start with the first one here. David, what is your key to success?
Stupidity. I'm too dumb to know when something is really difficult. I don't know. You got to be a little crazy to open a restaurant. I just got to say, and there's a lot of mistakes you make. And I think the key to success really, and not that we found it, we're doing really well and the area is growing. In 9 years, we survived COVID. We survived multiple floods here. Financial, you asked me earlier about financial backing. I had to take some loans at points to get it going, keep it going. I was ready to close the doors. I think you have to have persistence, and there's something about that internal thing which says, I'm not letting this defeat me. So that's
love that.
Persistence. Yeah.
Absolutely love that. So let's kind of shift that slightly to, what's one piece of advice that you would give to other business owners?
Start with a lot of money in the bank. No, I didn't. And it was really tough. I spent so much on the renovations. It was a little tight in the first few years. And, you're trying to build it and you realize you're living on like poverty wages and banks won't touch you when you're self-employed. It was right after, 2014. It was sort of post the 2008 crisis. I had to get a personal loan from somebody who believed in what we were doing. So it was an individual who loaned me some money to keep me going. I got her paid back. My advice, is really have a vision, believe in yourself, and think long-term. Now, I don't mean have everything set in stone, but you have to have a set of goals. And you have to sort of see that as part of your day-to-day operations. Everything should be flowing towards that mission. So, it's overused, but mission, right? So you have to have that.
Absolutely. I could not agree with you more on that one. If we just set out on if we set out on, a road trip and don't have a destination, it gets really difficult to know what roads to take and where to go. So there is that vision piece that's really important. So I love that there. What's one book that either you're currently reading or have read most recently?
Well, I just reread the whole Dune series. Okay. So that was like, I like sci-fi. I read Dune originally 30, 40
Fantastic.
years, I don't know, whatever. And I loved it. And then the movies came out. So I just, I'm waiting for the part 2, Denis Villeneuve. No, I just finished the whole Dune series, but I am actually reading Apocalyptic Planet by Craig Childs, which is about environmental apocalypses that have already occurred. And I'm very concerned about the future of our planet. I have young kids, Josh is 16 and Bella's 12 now, and they're inheriting this world that we're leaving them. And, food production and consumption habits are very much part of what we have to get under control on a planetary basis to be able to be survivable. And I'm very much a believer in sort of anti-corporate, like shared concepts. We share tips. I named it after my kids. I source from individuals where I have human relationships. I tend to stay away from the big long line corporate distributors. I deal with local people where I have this human thing, and there's no deeper construct of human interaction than food. We've been exchanging food as human beings for as long as we've been evolving, right? Hundreds of thousands, millions of years. food is something essential to who we are and how we present it to each other, how we share it. So it is not a corporate thing. It's very much a human thing. And I think if you value those things, I'm talking about environmental things, you're also somebody who is thinking about the planet and how we exist and coexist together. So all those things tie together for me. It's a vision of the world that I want my kids to inherit, which is, something based on human and shared values. That's it.
I love that. Absolutely love that. Kind of final rapid fire question before we, wrap up and end on one very specific question. I always love to end these conversations on, but always love to ask this one too, especially in business, right? If you had to choose only one area in your business that you could take some magic dust and sprinkle on it, it would magically improve overnight, where would you put that magic dust?
I'd like to fix my driveway. No, it's rural Texas, and we've had floods. We just had 2 years ago we had Are you in Texas right now?
Yes, I'm up in Georgetown.
In Georgetown. Oh, you're not far. So 2 years ago we all lost power, the big freeze.
Mm-hmm.
That was interesting. And then the recent one where we had an ice storm, I had a very wooded property around the restaurant, and it brought down tons of trees. And I've been chainsawing and dragging lumber and burning brush for 4 months now, and it's exhausting. So I would like to get a good landscaping company that I could afford. There's only but so much, and this is really the wish, which is the heart of your question, which is I'm getting older. My wife's a lot younger. I'm getting older, and physically, all the work is really demanding. I pick up a lot of the product. I drive to Austin once a week and load my Jeep up with product and, visit all these places where I pick things up. And I would like to somehow get systems that allow me to do less. But it's hard being in a growth stage where you are too small to hire on people to take these things out of your hands. And you're not large enough to pay people to sort of do all these things. So you end up doing a lot yourself. And that's a crux point. A lot of restaurants will open a second location just to bring in, that revenue stream and be able to make the other location function a little more efficiently so you can focus on the second one. There's all these techniques, but, for a small restaurateur, there's a lot of hats you have to wear. So sometimes I wish I didn't have to wear so many hats, but I kind of enjoy it. My wife says, you like struggle. So that's part of my life. I guess, enjoy it. She says, if there's a hard way and an easy way, you always take the hard way. So I guess it's just me.
Oh man. So before we jump into the final question to wrap us out today, for those that are watching, how can they, learn more about the business? How can they, if they're here locally, where can they, tell us, where to go to actually come and check it out and, experience the amazing restaurant. But how can they connect with you, follow you, see some of the things that you're doing, especially here in the community and continue to grow what you're growing? Where can we advise the audience to go for more information?
Yeah, well, we have our website. We have an Instagram page, Jobell, and Facebook. I don't keep up with the postings as I should, but there's a lot of great food pictures and there's some nice stories. We just redid our website. My wife did it on Squarespace. And that has a lot more information, I think, about, we've revised how you get reservations and there's more of our story on there. We're in Wimberley. It's a tourist destination. A lot of people coming to town here from Houston, from San Antonio, from Austin, a lot of getaways from Austin. It's a wonderful small community that still retains that charm, and a lot of bed and breakfast places. So, my thing would be come and investigate, visit Wimberley is my tourist thing. There's a lot of good restaurants here. It's become oddly a little culinary destination. You have Leaning Pear, which our friends Matt and Rachel Buchanan, they set down the first, cornerstone of the food scene in Wimberley. When we moved here, they had already been at it in a small shack, moved to a big building, but they were doing really good food. There's since, we opened, then there's been, Longleaf, there's been the Wimberley Supper Club, there's been, Creek House, cafe, and just a whole gamut of other culinary choices. Hildy's just opened. It's interesting how artistic endeavors, and it's also like a music scene and art scene, a lot of painters, a lot of artists, famous artists. It's interesting how creative energy attracts other creative types. So, that kind of thing of following this human energy that I talk about, like, especially in the creative realms, that's really how to find us, just follow that. Music, food, the arts. Come to Wimberley and check us out. Come find us.
I love it. I think that's a perfect segue into my final question, which is, David, what's most inspiring to you today?
My kids, that generation, they're so bright and so much more engaged and so much more worldwide than at least I ever was. They give me hope for the future, and I'm trying to build a future for them. And my son's actually, I throw him in the dish pit, but now he's out of school for the summer. He's actually learning at Garmo. He's learning to cook, and he's going in for a shift today. So the kids, I mean, I look at their classmates in high school and in middle school where Belle is, and they are bright and they're with it, and they have so many good questions and good ideas. And despite all the fears about the future and about other things going on in our world, they're passionate and they're engaged, and it's a motivator. It's what really keeps you going. It's you want to see them develop strength and resilience and compassion, and I think that's something personally I'd like to end on, which is kindness. We all have to be more kind with each other, and the kids do a very good job at that when left to their own devices. So,
Truly amazing. David, thank you so much for taking the time to be here with us today, to share your story, to just give us a peek into everything that's going on and the lessons you've learned along the way. It's been truly amazing, and I appreciate you taking the time with me today.
Thank you for the opportunity, Tanner. It's a pleasure speaking with you.